I think last week, one of the things that we hit on or reiterated even from the week before was that Daniel kind of opens up a door of understanding for us that we must enter into, a door we must go through, and that is acknowledging that there is spiritual warfare and that we are to enter into it. And Daniel was waging that war without even really knowing. He was just being obedient, and he was just seeking God. He was praying, and but unaware to him, the minute he started praying, he entered the battle, and things began to change, and God began to respond and send his messengers. And it's kind of crazy that he's sitting there praying and maybe not even feeling anything, just praying and seeking God, and praying that God would fulfill his promise, praying that the people would be that were in exile, which was in Babylon, now in Persia, that they would be going back to Israel, and God began taking action on that, and there was much resistance to it, much warfare that we talked about, and so generally we're given some hints here about praying, about what to pray for, and that we're called to pray, and still called to pray for Israel. As Keith prayed this morning for peace in Israel, we're called to pray for that. And we're called to pray for the church in general. And we're called to pray for our church specifically. And what we're doing today even is we're called to understand the times, what's going on in the world, and we're to understand our place in it, the church's place and our specific place in it. And I think one day in eternity that we'll see, I believe last week was some intense spiritual warfare going on. And I think if it wasn't for the prayers of God's people, that's you, that we wouldn't have had happen on Wednesday. What happened? That was the result of spiritual warfare. I mean, God's calling those people, but we are to be engaged and involved in it. And I believe that we were. And we need to keep that up. That is what we're called to do. And even more so as we see the day approaching. And you notice I'm using actual words from Scripture to tell you that we see what's going on. We see God's moving, and we need to respond to that. And that's what happened. It seems crazy, but our little dot, our little corner, tiny corner of the world, that this is related to what's going on in the world. What happened on Wednesday night is related to what's going on in the world. I'm sure of it. You, Garrett?
Oh yeah.
That if you entered into the battle over that, then I think you probably see it clearly. That it's related to, we talked about the Charlie Kirk stuff, we talked about Israel, we talked about what God's doing in the world, and it's like that was related to what's going on in the world, and we need to continue to respond to what God is calling us to. And that's exactly it's like, we didn't know all that was going to happen when we started studying Daniel, when we started studying chapter 11, we started studying spiritual warfare. We didn't know our very next step was going to be to jump in to it. But that's how God does things. That's how God works. So keep your head up. Pay attention. Because God's moving and acting, and we need to be responding to it. Demonic forces today do not want anyone to know what God's plan for the world is. Demonic forces do not want people to know what God's plan for Israel is. Demonic forces do not want you to know what God's plan for the church is. And he doesn't want you to know what God's plan for our specific church is. He's fighting against us even knowing it, much less taking action. So when we receive insight, which could happen today, it happened last week, it happened the week before, that when we receive insight as to what's going on, what God's calling us to, what God's calling you to, then we need to act on it. Now, there will be overwhelming circumstances and discouragement to stop you from doing what's good. And it may not seem to be related, but it's related. To what God's calling us to, what God's calling you to, your life will get overwhelmed and you will probably get discouraged. But He's calling you to push through and still respond to what He's doing in spite of circumstances. So, we looked at a few things that we need to obviously do, and that He will provide strength. Remember, it was supernatural, angelic being that gave Daniel strength. Why did he receive strength? What was going on? Would you like for someone supernaturally to lay their hand on your shoulder and give you strength to carry on, strength to do, strength to handle whatever situation you find yourself in, whatever discouragement you're facing? Would you like someone to lay their hand on your shoulder and give you strength? That's exactly what happened to Daniel. And the reason it happened to him was he was willing to enter into prayer, focused prayer. And from that prayer, he received strength. But there were other things we looked at too that we received the same kind of strength from, and that is from the Word. That is from like Garrett and like Blake shared, like Keith, like that through the Word, you being in the Word, you actually, it's a real thing. You receive strength. It's a real thing that you sit here. This is just God's way. We didn't come up with this. This is just God's way of doing things. And in fact, it's called the foolishness of preaching. That He would actually use this time to strengthen you. He could just zap you and just do it. But this is the way He chooses us to be involved in it. So by actually us, as we open the Bible today, miraculously, I opened to chapter 11 there. No way. So as we open our Bibles and read together today and study, you can receive strength. Supernatural, spiritual strength. So that's one way. Another way is just being in this setting. We could not even open the Bible today. We could just come in here and be in the room together and something happens. God strengthens us through the body. And that's why He tells us, don't forsake getting together, because I want to give you something when you get together. I want to strengthen you. I want to encourage you. And what happens is, it's not just me, God saying, direct. It's like it bounces off. It bounces off of each other. He doesn't do it with just one person in the room. He does it with people, with parts of the body together. He strengthens us. And we have to be careful that the battle does not go away because we ignore it. We just lose it. We just lose the battle. And I talked about this before. I bet you can think of times in your life, if you are a believer, if you're not a believer, you're kind of losing the battle all the time. But if you are a believer, that you've gone through phases of just losing the battle. Well, that could be temptation. That could be distraction. It could be depression. It could be just a self-focus. And that you may go through seasons of that. And it's wasted time. Wasted life. And you can end up spending your whole life there and having a wasted life. Sometimes it's obvious with people. That person wasted their life. They just squandered their abilities and the gifts. They just squandered it. And it's just obvious. Sometimes it's not so obvious because they seem like a success on the outside. But they haven't really impacted the world. They haven't impacted, and I don't mean like a Charlie Kirk type of impact the world. And if that's your calling, then do it. We'll help you. We'll support you. But we all are called to that. So when we lose the battle, we quit impacting the people around us. We are called to something, and it's the intensity of the calling is rising. It's rising as we get closer to the end time. So, prayer, the Word, the body, and enter the battle. Don't ignore the battle. Enter the battle. God is activating the church in these days. If you didn't see that, and now sometimes it's unseen. But if you didn't see that with the Charlie Kirk happenings, I'm not trying to make a saint out of Charlie Kirk. I don't know the details of his life, but I do know that God activated the church through what happened. Was everybody that went to church that Sunday, are they going to stick with it? Their life? No. But there are some that are, because God activated the church. He impacted us. We don't know. I don't think anybody here knows Charlie Kirk. Maybe, I don't even know anybody that was a super follower of him. But there was an event that God used to activate the church. He said, we're turning the temperature up. Respond to it. Respond to it. You did. You did. That was your response. What happened was your response to God's call, raising the temperature. You responded. You engaged the battle, and people were impacted. Lives potentially changed. Now, we got to keep it up. We got to stay in the battle. But that is a response to I believe, what God revealed to us. Not just one person. God revealed to us kind of organically, in a sense, chapter 11 of this ancient book of Daniel. And people responded, and God moved, and things happened, and we're in the battle. So let's stay there. Hopefully we'll get some more information today as we continue to study. So, chapter 11. The first half of chapter 11, verses 1 through 36, was history. Now, we're not going to dig into this, but if you ever just want to be assured of prophecy, not just the big obvious prophecy like Isaiah prophesying the birth of the Messiah, and those types of prophesying the return of people, Jews to Israel, that's prophesied in the Bible. We see it happen. But there's a lot more detail of things we're not aware of. That whole first half of chapter 11 is history. It's history. It's Alexander the Great conquering Persia. It's Alexander the Great dying early. It's his 4 generals getting territory, and then there's battles that go in between them, and then how that impacts Israel, how it impacts the world. There's detail about that. We're not going to dig into that. It was prophecy to Daniel. It's history to us, so we can go back and study it. I did a little bit of that, and I'm going, wow, look at this. And we're not going to dig into that, but it is there for the taking, if you want to look at it. Then, if you have your Bible open to chapter 11, and between verses 36 and 37, or I should say maybe between 35 and 36, is the church age. A lot of times in prophecy, it'll hit the mountain peaks, and there'll be valleys in between it doesn't dig into. But we know from the rest of the Bible, there's a valley there between what was going on in that 400 BC all the way up to, say, near the birth of Christ. All that stuff was going on. And then we have the church age that came after that. That's in the valley. Now we get to the next peak, and the next peak we have is the appearance of the Antichrist. That's going to happen. It doesn't even dig into the rapture, because right now the prophecy here is centered, in a sense, on Israel. It was centered on Babylon, on Rome, on the Greeks. It was centered on that. Now we're from God's dealing with Israel perspective, and we didn't even dig in. So we didn't even dig into the church age here, but we know what happened here in between is the church was born, and God began to use the church to do what Israel did not do, and that was to spread the gospel to the world. And God didn't replace Israel with the church, but he gave the church the job to take on that job. And so that's what's been going on in between those verses. And that's where we are today. That's where we exist right now. But there's things that are going to happen next. And just as true, it's really cool, because the first half of the whole chapter was prophecy that all came true. Detailed, came true. The second half is prophecy that hasn't come true yet. But we can count on it coming true. Just like the first half came true. We can count on that happening. And so between verses 36 and 37 is the church age. Revelation, chapters 1 through 3, covers that, as does the rest of the New Testament. And then in verse 37 starts this information on the Antichrist and the tribulation. Now we get information here that's like, it's just crazy that how ancient this is, but it's going to deal with information that the book of Revelation doesn't cover completely, so the two work together. And so we won't get a complete coverage of this until we study Revelation, which we kind of plan on hitting next. We'll see. But we don't get the whole story, but we get some information that's not in the book of Revelation. It helps us fill up the gaps in our knowledge. So, like I said, this was, remember verses 1 through 36, verses 1 through 3, is the ram and the goat and all that stuff was going on from previous chapters of chapter 8, I think it was. So now that brings us up to verse, but before we get into verse 36, we'll kind of finish this off, this section of history, and let's read Daniel 11:32. It's kind of a message to us. So we have this shadow of what's his name, Micah? Come on, you got to be ready all the time now. The forerunner of the Antichrist.
Oh, Antiochus Epiphanes.
What's that?
Antiochus Epiphanes.
Yeah. So there's that picture of Antiochus that's a foreshadowing of the Antichrist. Remember? He went in a rage to Jerusalem. If the Jewish people were not going to bow down to Zeus, to his Greek gods, then he just wanted an excuse to kill them. And then he set up a statue. He set up an idol of Zeus in the Holy of Holies, and sacrificed a pig on the altar. He was desecrating the temple, just like the Antichrist and the tribulation is going to desecrate the temple, because he himself is going to go into the rebuilt temple, the third temple in Jerusalem. He's going to go in and proclaim himself to be God. So it's a step up from Antiochus. He's not just going to say, worship this god, this false god, Zeus. He's going to say, worship me. And so as we prepare, we will not be there for that. The rapture will have already taken place, but there will be some lead up to it that's going to be the system of the Antichrist is going to be, and we are going to have to resist. We're going to have to stand against that. And so what's this? There was a guy, Maccabees, that stood up to it and fought against what Antiochus was doing there. He fought against that. And so what was it about him that enabled him to stand up against this? And you'll see, so this is kind of a little bit of counsel to us as we prepare for the intensity of the end times. It's telling us a little. We've already had some information from Daniel and stuff. Now we get another example, and this is how we are to respond. So let's read Daniel 11:32. Does somebody have a King James? Does anybody have a King James? Micah, would you find a King James on your phone there and read after he reads it in the whatever version he's reading there, and then read the King James after that. So 11:32, Daniel.
You want me to read it first?
Yeah.
Okay. With flattery he will corrupt those who have violated the covenant, but the people who know their God will firmly resist him.
So there's going to be this spiritual warfare action that's going to be taking place, and there's going to be the only way to resist that is the people that know their God. It says we will then be able to firmly resist the enemy. And Micah, would you read the King James?
Yeah, 32.
Yeah.
And such as do wickedly against the covenant shall he corrupt by flatteries. But the people that do know their God shall be strong and do exploits.
They will be strong and do exploits. Who are the people that are going to do that? The
People that do know their God.
people that know God. People that do know God. And So that's Maccabees, in a sense, was an example of that. Daniel was an example of that. And we see it repeated throughout the Old Testament and the New Testament. Moses took action. Moses stood firm. And the key thing about Moses that's talked about is that he knew God. Abraham was talked about as a friend of God. Paul knew God. That is what you get pouring out of Paul, is his contact with God. So, in the last days, which the Bible tells us we are in, then we need to have this same thing. Now, when the elders, like, which I am too, but if the elders keep telling me something, then it's like, I need to listen, you need to listen. Now, one of the things they've been telling me recently is, we've been telling each other in a sense, but they have told me more strongly, is that the men need to step up. Have y'all been saying that to me? Yeah. Keith and Garrett both have been saying, we need to do something. We need to encourage the men to step up, to be strong. And it's like, I'm reading through it, I'm sitting there, go, there it is, right there. That's for us. As we just talked about, we have things to pour out of this that are not just for the world at large, they're for us specifically. And I believe that coming through their leadership, that they spoke to me, I'm speaking to you. I don't ignore those types of things. I should not anyway. That the men need to step up. And how do we step up? And that's not, everybody needs to step up. But specifically that has come to the surface by knowing God. By knowing God. That means, how do you know God? How do you guys know God? How do you know God better? That's a real question you can answer.
Spend time with him.
What? Spend time with him. How do we know him? That's good. What else?
Pray, read his word.
Pray. We actually engage God. We engage him. I'm going to tell you, this is practical secret, practical advice, practical experience. I can pray for 5 minutes, and that's really good. That's good. But what I've noticed is, if I pray a little longer, if I keep going, if I persevere in prayer, something happens. Something happens. God meets with me there. It's like, okay, you really want to talk to me? You're really going to spend some time doing this? You're really going to engage me? I will engage you. Draw near to me, and I will draw near to you. Keep on praying. Persevere in prayer. And something happens. You'll meet with God. He'll put things on your heart and on your mind that you need to pray about. And things you need to do differently. You say, well, I'm not hearing from God. But are you persevering in prayer? You will meet with God. From that experience, you will know God. When you know God, you will be strong and do exploits. You'll take action. I love the King James of that. You'll be strong, and that's a manly verse. You'll do something, okay? You won't just think about it. You won't just talk about it. You will do something. You'll take action, whatever that action may be. So, it's got to be, if we're talking about men, it's got to be, it's like, take some leadership. Takes leadership in the body. That means when you see something, a direction, that don't just keep silent. Speak up. What do we need to do as a body? When you see something needs to happen in your home, don't just wait for your wife to tell you what to do. Don't just wait for her. Take action. Do something. Lead. What's the main things that needs to happen in your homes? And we talked about this in families, is that we need to be trained to not be self-focused, to not be self-centered, to not be driven by the flesh. We used that silly example of Lightning McQueen last week. But I forgot to take it a step further and say that everybody in here has been in a family, and that's one of the main things that you learn. You learn how to not be just about yourself. Isn't that, from brothers and sisters, from your parents, from being in a family, even if it's not a Christian family, you learn how to care, to be concerned for others and their needs, not just yourself. Now, as a man in a family, It's your responsibility to make sure that happens with yourself, with your wife. But that is a main thing that your kids learn. They learn self-control. If you don't teach your kids self-control, you have done a disservice that will follow them all of their life. To teach them. If you didn't get taught self-control, then you can still learn it. It's going to be some work. But self-control is, people can have that just out there in the world. You've known people with self-control. But we as Christians can have spirit-filled, spirit-empowered self-control, where it's real, where we actually care about others as much as we do ourselves. We're concerned about their welfare, their spiritual condition. That is, and we do not put our own wants, desires, and wishes above others. Self-control. And we teach that and we learn that. That is primary. That's one thing. It's one thing that men do. They need to do. They make sure that's happening in their family, because that's more the natural tendency of a man, the father, than it is a mother, is to teach that. It's like, I love you, yeah, good boy, but I want to see you do things differently. I want to see some action here. That is a manly approach, and that's what we, and the men, it's not everybody, it's for everybody, of course. But I think that there's a specific call going on right now to us in our body, and I'm encouraging these guys to keep pushing it. Keep pushing it. I've seen it in your text, and I've seen it in your conversation. Let's keep going with it until we have success. So that's there. Did I spend too much time on that? Verses 36 to 39. We switch now from the shadow of the Antichrist, from history. Now we shift to the future. We transition right here. And this is the switch from the foreshadowing to the real Antichrist. Uh-oh. Some action needs to happen. So that's let's read verses 36 to 39. This is going to introduce the Antichrist. This is some of the most early information in the Bible that we have about the Antichrist. We already know something about him, okay? We've already learned from chapter 9. We've learned some things about this guy. That he is a man of great ability who is given over to Satan. He's been groomed behind the scenes. He hasn't been visible to everybody. He's been groomed behind the scenes. He knows how to control and manipulate. Now, he's going to need a system in place to do what he's going to do. Now, a lot of that system, in my opinion here, is through what started out just the internet, risen to AI. There's this ability to know what's going on with every individual in the world. You're going to have an ID, all that kind of stuff. That's what all of that is leading to. Cameras everywhere, control, observation, and control. And that has never been as capable as it is today. That's why, Lori, when it's like it just strikes me wrong when Lori, it's okay. I don't care if Lori knows where I am every minute and where I'm going and what all that. I really don't care. But it's like it just gets me a little bit. Like I can be followed. Everything I do, and that's one of the purposes of digital money. Every cent you spend, know where it goes. There's a record of it for the purpose of control. So you see, one of the basic things of this coming figure is to step into that system that's already been put into place and be at the top of it and control everything. And that's his goal. Now, that's not how he starts off, because he's going to come onto the scene as a peacemaker. He's one of the four horsemen. he has a bow in his hand, but no arrows. He's going to come and make peace, and he's going to comfort. That's going to be the way he enters the scene. So let's read, but then we're going to see, and the hard stuff about chapter 11, it's going to bounce around a little bit. It's going to be at the beginning of it's going to talk about, and this is the beginning of the tribulation, right? What we talk about here. It's going to go to the beginning, it's going to go to the middle of the tribulation. Times, and half a time. It's 3.5 years. And then it's going to go to the end of the tribulation. In chapter 12, it's going to dip into the millennium. So it's like, it's all over the place. But let's read. 36 to 39. We're switching to the Antichrist.
The king will do as he pleases. He will exalt and magnify himself above every god and will say unheard of things against the God of gods. He will be successful until the time of wrath is completed, for what has been determined must take place. He will show no regard for the gods of his ancestors, or for the one desired by women, nor will he regard any god, but will exalt himself above them all. Instead of them, he will honor a god of fortress, a god unknown to his ancestors. He will honor with gold and silver, with precious stones and costly gifts. He will attack the mightiest fortresses with the help of a foreign god, and will greatly honor those who acknowledge him. He will make them rulers over many people, and will distribute the land at a price.
So, at first a man of peace, but you see, he's about power. Power is control. That's what he's about. And he's going to use the systems of the world to accomplish that, and he's going to be empowered by Satan to do it. And he's going to have great success in it. So, people will come against him. There will be some countries, we're going to find out later, that come against him from the east and from the north. Is that China and Russia? I don't know, but some of those countries I can't really see some of them bowing down to anybody except their own dictator. So that could be it. But he's going to have success. Nobody's going to be able to stand against him. Both his wisdom, his power, his control is going to be you can't topple him. And so he's going to rise in power through the 7 years, and then he's going to come to an end, though. In the 7 years, he's going to be defeated, but not by man. So that's not going to happen. And then we'll get into that in this chapter. He will demand loyalty, and he will reward loyalty. If you take on, you see this, when evil people, when you take on their evil ways, they applaud you for it. They applaud you for it. When you take on their evil, and he's going to be doing that to the extreme, and he's going to reward people for taking on and give them power also, but still under him. He will demand loyalty, and he will ruthlessly put down any rebellion against his rule. And Dave, would you read? Listen to hear a little bit about this guy, the Antichrist, the beast. We already studied this with Daniel 9:27. Little review.
He will confirm a covenant with many for 1 7. In the middle of the 7, he will put an end to sacrifice and offering. And at the temple, he will set up an abomination that causes desolation until the end that his decree is poured out on him.
Okay. So, this gives us just a taste of his power and deceit as he comes on the scene and he makes a deal with Israel. Okay. This is not this. What's going on right now is not this, okay? This Trump is not Antichrist. This is not the peace deal he's making with Israel. This could lead up to something like this. It could lead to that. This could lead. I don't have confidence that it's going to or not going to, okay? Because this deal could be broken tomorrow. The hostages are supposed to be released today. There's supposed to be a peace deal. There's supposed to be first steps of leading to peace in Israel. Whether that's going to happen this time or not, I do not know. But it could be leading up to a time of peace in Israel, which is going to happen, but it's going to be a temporary peace. And they're going to be attacked and they'll be rescued by God sometime in that whole time frame. The rapture will will take place. So, now this peace treaty with Israel that it talks about here is commonly viewed as a treaty with many nations in Israel, a world peace type of thing. But really, if you read this closely, it's dealing with the covenant. If you read this, and that covenant is not just referring to the peace deal, it's dealing with the covenant, the Mosaic covenant. And so it probably, this is kind of my guess, has as much to do with rebuilding the temple and reinstating the Mosaic sacrifice system as it does with many nations. I believe it has as much to do. Now, on the Temple Mount right now is a mosque, but that Temple Mount really is controlled by Israel, and they just have given permission to the Muslims to run that mosque, but the real security around the perimeter, the whole control of that is by Israel. So there will come a time when there will be a temple built there. Everything is open right there except that mosque that sits right in the middle. So the peace deal most likely will have to do with Israel. That is what's going to be important to them at this time. It's going to be, and it's important to them now, we just don't really know it. There's a segment of the people that's important to rebuild the temple and reinstate the sacrificial system. All that is necessary to happen. So let's read a little bit about what's going to happen, though, because that's going to happen. That's going to be the beginning of the tribulation period. Halfway through, the mask is going to come off of this man, the Antichrist, and he is going to try to wipe out the Jewish people. So it's going to be relentless what he does. So let's read a couple of verses and look ahead, because this time is referred to in this section. It's halfway into the tribulation period. So 2 Thessalonians, I told you, it's a little confusing. We're a little bit all over the place, but we're just taking it as it comes. Who's next to read? Shannon, 2 Thessalonians 2:4, and then Blake, Revelation 13, 14, and 15.
He will oppose and will exalt himself over everything that is called God or is worshipped, so that he sets himself up in God's temple, proclaiming himself to be God.
Okay, that's the temple that will sit on Temple Mount in Jerusalem. There will be a temple built, and at first it's going to be peace. Now, the tribulation will have already started, been going on 3 months, so it's still hard times are going on. But he's still pretending to be Israel's friend. And then he is going to step into the Holy of Holies, proclaim himself to be God. Blake, will you read Revelation 13?
Because of the signs it was given power to perform on behalf of the first beast, it deceived the inhabitants of the earth. It ordered them to set up an image in honor of the beast who was wounded by the sword and yet lived. The second beast was given power to give breath to the image of the first beast, so that the image could speak and cause all who refused to worship the image to be killed.
So he's going to set up some sort of an image in the Holy of Holies. That's not too hard for us to imagine these days. That's a possible thing to be done with AI, with that sort of thing. So he's going to set up an image, and that image will speak, and that image will be worshipped by the world. And if the world refuses to worship by getting the mark of the beast, then they will be pursued and killed. So the people that will be pursued, the main group here we're going to find out will be the Jews' jaws are going to hit the floor, and they're going to go, we messed up. Run. And that's where they're instructed, and we'll read that verse in a minute, to run for the hills, because they're going to be pursued. And then those that believe during the tribulation period, the church is already gone, but those that believe, tribulation saints, those that believe during the tribulation, they too will be pursued, because they will not take, they'll see what's going on, they will not take the mark of the beast, and they will resist him. And so they too will be pursued. 2 Thessalonians 2, 9 to 12. Is that you, Aaron?
Is that me?
Yeah. 2 Thessalonians,
I can get it.
y'all decide.
miracles, signs, and wonders, and in every sort of evil that deceives those who are perishing. They will perish because they refuse to love the truth, and so be saved. For this reason, God sends them a powerful delusion, so that they will believe the lie, and so that all, all will be condemned who have not believed the truth, but have delighted in wickedness.
So we see some of the tools of the Antichrist is power, just sheer power. And we're going to see it needs to be financed. So he's going to have a way to finance it. It's going to be power, it's going to be control, and it's going to be deception. Those are some of the key tools that of the Antichrist, and just demonic power. And he's going to be perceived as a peacemaker, intelligent, all that kind of stuff. But let's take a look at Matthew 24:15-21.
So when you see standing in the holy place the abomination that caused desolation spoken of through the prophet Daniel, let the reader understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let no one on the housetop go down to take anything out of the house. Let no one in the field go back to get their cloak. How dreadful it will be in those days for pregnant women and nursing mothers. Pray that your flight will not take you place in the winter or on the Sabbath, for then there will be great distress, unequaled from the beginning of the world until now, and never to be equaled again.
So it's funny too, he picks out women here to say, to give a warning to, in a sense. And if you look at the history of the times that Satan has tried to eliminate the Jewish people, it's been time, not just the Holocaust or the Inquisitions or when Herod killed. It's like there's just this time after time after time, but this will be the worst. And if you look at October the 7th, 2023, when Hamas and Palestinians attacked and killed many people, that the worst, though, was what they did to the women. And it's not even appropriate to even mention it here, the things that they did, and to children and to pregnant women particularly, some of the horrible things that happened. And so in this warning, too, that if you think that was bad, this is going to be worse. It's going to be intense. Now, it's going to be also towards tribulation saints, those that have believed. It's going to happen to them too. But right here, this is discussing is what's going to happen to the Jewish people. They were deceived. And now it's coming back. And now some horrible things are going to happen, and they'll be protected, but they need to run. They need to get out of town. And those the believers, will probably be the first to stand against the Antichrist, those tribulation saints, because when they believe, they're going to recognize what's going on. So now, in a sense, it's like a modern day Antichrist, that he had a rage and went into Jerusalem to kill. And he was a shadow of the Antichrist, who's like in a rage to kill. Now, we're going to get into why. So why is he doing this? We'll get into that in just a minute. It'll tell us a little bit of why he's doing this. Now, there will be nations also that don't fully buy into this world leader, or maybe they're simply tired of him trying to control everything. But there will be nations from the east and from the north, it says, that will try, that will come against him. And those wars are recorded here a little bit, and they're also recorded in Revelation, those battles. But nobody's going to really be able to stand against him. And as we read, he cares nothing about tradition or history or even false gods. He cares about power, and it's satanic power, and that's what. Now there's a line there that's a kind of that I have to address, but I don't know that I have a really good interpretation for it about he will show no regard for the gods of his ancestors. I get that. For the one, or for the one desired by women. I don't necessarily get that. I know some people have said that refers to him possibly as being a homosexual, but I don't think that doesn't seem to be the wording of it. It seems like it's naming another god, and there's some ancient what?
It's Adonis.
That there's an ancient cults of women that followed, like Adonis. There's these ancient cults, and a lot of them were, which I wasn't aware of that until I dug into it a little more. There were cults of women that followed Adonis, so or other gods like that. So that's what I think this probably is. That's what I think it's referring to, but it's a little odd. The wording is a little odd there, but. And he will have success at all these things that he's doing. These things that he will have success at it. So let's go on to the more of the triumph, but the eventual fall of the Antichrist. And 40 to 45.
At the time of the end, the king of the south will engage him in battle, and the king of the north will storm out against him with chariots and cavalry and a great fleet of ships. He will invade many countries and sweep through them like a flood. He will also invade the beautiful land. Many countries will fall, but Edom, Moab, and the leaders of Ammon will be delivered from his hand. He will extend his power over many countries. Egypt will not escape. He will gain control of the treasures of gold and silver and all the riches of Egypt with the Libyans and Cushites in submission. But reports from the east and the north will alarm him, and he will set up in a great rage to destroy and annihilate many. He will pitch his royal tents between the seas at the beautiful holy mountain. Yet he will come to his end, and no one will help him.
So it seems he has set up his rule, his throne, if you would, in Jerusalem, possibly the temple itself. That now that he's ruling from Jerusalem. So he's come in, he's dominated this whole region completely. Now there are some other countries that are going, we're not going to put up with this, and they're coming to fight against him. Now, like I said, that's possibly from the east and from the north, from countries, peoples a little further away. Let's read a little bit of Revelation, the battle for the rule of the world, is Revelation 16, 12 to 14.
The sixth angel poured out his bowl on the great river Euphrates, and its water was dried up to prepare the way for the kings from the east. Then I saw 3 impure spirits that looked like frogs. They came out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. They are demonic spirits that perform signs, and they go out to the kings of the whole world to gather them for the battle on the great day of God Almighty.
Oh, was that
14.
14. Okay. So you see what's going on here? That they're coming against him, but he's through demonic influence, he's calling them to come. Come on. And there's pathways are being cleared for them to come, and they're headed to, where are they headed? Armageddon? That's where they're headed to. Who was it? One great general, Napoleon, had said this is the most ideal battlefield in the world. And there's been battles fought there. Is this the plain of Armageddon there? And so that's where they're headed. That's where they're headed to do battle. So this may have started as a war against the Antichrist. Well, he's got all of his forces, so it's like all the armies of the world are headed to Armageddon. They're gathering at Armageddon. But somehow it seems that the Antichrist has turned the tables on them, and his plan appears to be to use all the armies of the world to fight against Jesus coming back. So that's his very smart plan. So he's going to use all the armies of the world to fight against the return of Jesus. So Satan knew from the scriptures that Jesus would be returning to Jerusalem. He knows that's where he's coming back to. That's where they're all gathering at. They're going to meet him there. And he is trying to stop him, Jesus, from coming through a few avenues. He's going to try to eliminate the Jews. That's one avenue, one arm of his plan. He's going to eliminate the Jews. If he can eliminate the Jews, they will not repent, because the Jews will recognize the one whom they pierced, and they will repent, and Jesus will return, and they will be saved. So just a little tidbit here. When we think of the Jews being called the chosen people, that doesn't mean that all Jews are going to go to heaven. They're not going to all be saved. They're set apart for his purposes. But if they have to be right with God. They're going to have to accept the Messiah. They're going to have to accept Jesus. That's what's going to happen. All that is prophesied. Satan knows that. So part of his agenda is to kill all the Jews. And he's going to try to take the place of Jesus. Where is Jesus going to set up his throne? In Jerusalem. That's where the Antichrist is already setting up his throne. And he's going to use all the forces of earth and hell to fight against Jesus when he comes back. So he knows when he's coming back. And he knows when that agreement was made with Israel by his man, Antichrist. And he knows that he has 7 years to try to take the world, dominate, and to prepare and to stop Jesus from coming back. So let's read Revelation 19 through 23. Let's go. You got a bunch of verses. Come on, Keith.
And I saw the beast and the kings of the earth, and
the beast is the Antichrist. That's who it is. Okay.
And their armies assembled to make war against him, Jesus, who sat on the horse, and against his army. And the beast was seized, and with him the false prophet who performed the signs in his presence, by which he deceived those who received the mark of the beast, and those who worshiped his image. These two were thrown alive into the lake of fire, which burns with brimstone. And the rest were killed with the sword, which came from the mouth of him who sat on the horse. And all the birds were filled with their flesh. Then I saw an angel coming down from heaven, holding the key of the abyss and a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold of the dragon, the serpent of old, who is the devil and Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years. And he threw him into the abyss, and shut it and sealed it over him, so that he would not deceive the nations any longer, until the 1,000 years were completed. After these things, he must be released for a short time.
So the Antichrist, the beast, and the prophet, his prophet, those two men, those are humans. Those are two humans that will not go to the judgment seat of Christ, obviously. No unbelievers will. But they will not even go to the great white throne judgment. They just go straight to hell. They're just thrown straight to hell. Satan is just chained, restrained for the 1,000 years, which is going to be the 1,000-year millennial kingdom. So let's read the first verse in chapter 12, and then we'll wrap everything up here. So it sounds like we're done here, right? Daniel's like, he's kind of, your head should be spinning with all the ground he's covered here, but he keeps writing. So we'll see. We'll finish this next week, and we're going to cover some other stuff too. But let's read verse 1 of chapter 12.
At that time, Michael, the great prince, who protects your people, will arise. There will be a time of distress such as has not happened from the beginning of nations until then. But at that time, your people, every one whose name is found written in the book, will be delivered.
So this is talking to the Jews here. And he's standing, Michael, standing to defend them now. He's going to battle for them. And it says, those whose names are written in the book of life. That's talking about that obviously includes all people that believe during the tribulation, but it's really spoken to Jews. For those of you that believe, then you will enter into you'll enter into heaven, enter into the millennial kingdom with Jesus, those that believe. So let's go to this goes, and he also talks about, but then he goes back to this 3.5 year period, which is the most distressful period. But since he mentions it, we're going to talk about it a little bit. Is Jeremiah 30, verse 7.
How awful that day will be, no other will be like it. It will be a time of trouble for Jacob, but he will be saved out of it.
So, trouble for Jacob, that's talking about the Jewish people. It's going to be a time of, it's the last 3.5 years of the tribulation, also called the Great Tribulation. So, Michael, the angel, the protector, the prince of Israel, he has to know the difference between God's discipline. God is disciplining Israel. He's disciplining them to bring them back to himself. But he has to know the difference between that and a vicious attack from the enemy, and the difference between the wrath of God. So God's discipline, he's not going to protect them from, because that is God calling them back to himself. He will protect them from the wrath of God and from just the simple vicious attack of the enemy. He's going to protect them. So chapter 12 will include a short overview, again, of the tribulation and the millennial kingdom, and it'll also include that severe attack on the Jews in a last-ditch effort from Satan to destroy them. So, Israel is obviously central to these end-time events. Remember, the church has already been taken out, right? And then he's judging the nations. And there will still be a chance for some, they will most likely be martyred, to believe. But a lot of it is centered around God's dealing with Israel. So that it's obvious. Read Revelation. It's obvious that it can't be denied that Israel is central to these events. So we need some understanding. We need of God's perspective on Israel. His perspective on Israel right now is that we're not going to. I was way ambitious. I thought we would cover that today, Keith. But we're not. Next week we'll as we finish chapter 12, we'll also pause and we'll say, what's God's perspective? What's our perspective on Israel right now? If we're going to understand end times prophecy and have the right perspective, we need to know what's God's perspective on Israel right now. And so next week we'll look at arguments about this, like replacement theology. We'll look at arguments like, is modern Israel, the governance of Israel, is that legitimate? Is that legit? And we'll look at, the idea they rejected and killed their Messiah. So what about that? So these questions that we're going to talk about Israel, they're being dealt with by this is so, the light should come on. It's like, even the media is dealing with these questions. Politicians are dealing with these questions. Maybe you saw the ridiculous argument between Ted Cruz and Tucker Carlson. Did anybody see that? Okay. Ted Cruz was trying, but he was not prepared. He was not prepared. And Tucker Carlson didn't understand what he was talking about. Okay? These guys didn't know. There's two guys arguing about Israel, and neither one of them knew what they were talking about. Sorry. You need to know what you're talking about. Okay? So that's what we're going to deal with next week. This is not about you agreeing or disagreeing with the politics of Israel. You will not agree with everything Israel does. I'm sure of it. You won't. You don't have to. Nobody's asking you to. What is it? But you need to understand God's perspective on Israel. What does the Bible say about that? So we just need a baseline understanding. And some people are going to go to this side of support Israel and everything. above the United States, above the interest of have politics. Then there's going to be people that are saying Israel doesn't have the right to exist anymore. So, but we're going to try to get an understanding. What does the Bible say and what's God's perspective on Israel? And what's the meaning of them being a nation again in this time period we're in? So we're going to hopefully, we'll prepare you to do a little better than Ted Cruz or obviously Tucker Carlson did in their little discussion about Israel, because they were wrong. So I hope we can hear as God is dealing with us, and that we will know our God and be strong and do exploits that we're called to.